He says, you will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. We're going to title today's message, The Peacekeeper. If you could wish for one thing in your life, and don't look at me all spiritual, I know everybody does their share of wishing, all right? For years, I wished I could have a ranch like the Ponderosa. I was going to be the next Ben Cartwright. I finally give up on that about a month or so ago. For the longest time, I wished I had 2 sections of ground out in central Kansas full of pheasants and quail. I've had more wishes than a hound dog's got fleas. I was always wishing for something. But more than anything else, as I get older, the one thing I'm wishing for more than anything is peace. Peace in my life, peace in my family, peace for my children, for my grandchildren, peace in my church, peace for all the people I care about, peace in my community and in my country. Isn't that true? If you've ever went without peace in these places, there's nothing you'd rather have than have peace. And folks, we can have this peace. You can have this peace, but in order to have it, you have to understand something. This peace does not depend on others. Let me repeat that. This peace does not depend on others. Isaiah shows me where peace comes from. And I don't know, I don't come to people for peace. It don't come from who's in control of my church, my community, or my country where my peace comes from. It comes from where my mind is and where my trust is. Here's your little verse from the book of Mark Hall this morning that I want you to remember. When you expect your peace to come from people, you're putting unreasonable expectations on them. You're putting unreasonable expectations on them because you're expecting them to provide you with something you can only get from God. When you expect your peace to come from people, you're putting unreasonable expectations on them because you're asking them to provide you with something they can only get from God. There ain't going to be no peace in this world. If you've been waiting on having peace in this world, it ain't happening. Jesus told us that in this world we're going to have trouble. But you can have peace. Everybody's always looking for some man to bring peace. Well, he'll come along all right. The Bible tells us about him, but he's going to be the Antichrist. If you're looking for peace from any other source but God, forget about it. You ain't going to find it. There's no peace to be had. We're going to play a little game here I call the newlywed game. So Jake and Katie Barnes, come on down. The boys went on, so we're just going to have to imagine the boys up here. Now, Jake, how long y'all been married?
8 years.
8 years. Okay, you're fixing to find out. All right, Jake, you go right over there. Katie, you stay right about here. Okay. Jake comes home from work one day. They've been married 8 years, and it's been wedded bliss. Just sickening sweet. But today, Jake's coming home mad. Show him your mad face. It's been one of those days everybody's got sideways with Jake. So here he comes. But Katie, being the sweet girl she is, she heads this off. She gives him a big hug and a kiss. Oh, isn't that nice? But now, go on back to work, both of you. Here a few weeks later, they're coming in. Katie's had one of them days. Can you do the look yet? 8 years isn't really enough time. It takes 10 or 12, but do your best. Give him that look. You come on in. Jake sees that look, so he gives her a big hug and a kiss. Kiss her right on the jaw there. All right, now go on back to work. Everything's good, right? Today, now, they're both coming in mad. They've both had one of those days. They get home, Tanner's up in the top of a tree squalling like a panther, and Tucker's trying to shoot him down with a Nerf gun. I mean, they've had it. Now square off. Okay. Where's your peace coming from now? He's been dependent on her. She's been dependent on him. Now what happens? You can go sit down. Thank you. The peace that they need if they're going to keep this family afloat can only come from God. If he's coming home every night expecting her to provide him with peace from the kind of problems he's faced all day, he's putting an unreasonable expectation on her, and vice versa. And he's going to feel let down by her when he doesn't get it, and vice versa. Well, that kind of peace only comes from God. We live in a world of sensationalism. Have you figured that out yet? I mean, it's in everything. I was talking to some guys here a while back. Even the stinking weatherman sensationalizes every quarter-inch rain shower is going to be the next typhoon or hurricane or tornado. Every little skiff of snow is going to be a 2-footer. Ever since this Facebook deal come along, every winter somebody's forecasting a little snow. Everybody you talk to, boy, I seen it on Facebook. There's going to be 2 foot of snow. It's going to get 20 below. You better. Are you ready? Everything is sensationalized. Social media, internet, cable news. They thrive on keeping people wound up and agitated. Because if they can keep you wound up and agitated, they've got you hooked. And they can keep you coming back. You get hooked on the drama, and you feed on it, and you keep coming back for more and more and more, and you wonder, where's the peace in this? There ain't no peace in this. The devil is in the drama business. God is in the peacekeeping business, and he has perfect peace for you. Right there in verse 3 it says, you will keep him in perfect peace. So how do you get this perfect peace from him? How am I supposed to get this perfect peace? Well, it's a trade. I give him something, he gives me this perfect peace. What do I have to give him? It's right there. It says, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. I'll warn you now, if you're going after this perfect peace, the peace is worth the fight, but it's going to be a battle. Who's the fight with? Your own flesh. Turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 10. You're going to battle your own flesh to acquire this peace. The Bible calls it a spiritual war. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. He says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. Now, if we keep our minds stayed on God, we're holding on to him. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to be, verse 5, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. If we could just keep our minds right, if we could just keep our stinking thoughts under control, we battle that flesh, we can have that peace. People and their silly arguments about worldly things. The media we talked about before, all of this wars against your mind being stayed on God. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to keep your mind on God and have peace when you're bush hogging or mowing the lawn? You ever wonder why that is? Man, I always said if I could brush hog every day, I could preach every night. You know why that is? Because we don't have all this outside noise coming at us, all these distractions coming at us constantly, and we can keep our minds on God. If I can keep my mind right, I can have my peace. What am I giving it to? Well, I'm not giving it to the same thing you are. We've all got our weaknesses. We've all got our things. And the devil knows exactly what it is. He's watched the game film on you. He'll come against you. He does not want your mind on God. He wants it on anything but. And if he can get your mind off God, he's killed your peace. So number one, if I want this perfect peace in my life, I've got to keep my mind stayed on him. Secondly, I've got to give him my trust. Our founding fathers were so much smarter than we are. You know why? They had the faith and the foresight to stamp on our currency, on our money, in God we trust. An old boy from Florida, he's a representative by the name of Charles Bennett, said this. He said, adding in God we trust to our currency will serve as a constant reminder that our nation's political and economic fortunes are tied to our spiritual faith. And then in 1956, In God We Trust became the official motto of the United States. Why do you think we've been so blessed as a country? Psalm chapter 33, verse 12 says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. I thank God that I was born in a Christian nation. It's not in money we trust. It's not in Washington that we trust. It's in God we trust. If anybody ever accuses you of being born with an advantage, you certainly were. You were born in a Christian nation where it says, in God we trust. Now, turn with me to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17. That's for our country. That's for our nation. Now, what about me? Jeremiah chapter 17. Jeremiah 17, let's see, and when you get there, go down and look at two verses, verses 7 and 8. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes. But its leaf will be green, and he will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. You trust in the Lord, you'll be blessed. You're like this big old tree planted down by the creek bank. Now, is there going to be drought? Absolutely there's going to be drought. Is there going to be heat? Sure there's going to be heat. Just because you trust in the Lord does not mean that everything's going to be coming up daisies. There's still going to be drought. There's still going to be heat. But now, if you're trusting in him, you're going to be rooted. You will have peace through the drought, through the heat. You won't be losing it. And then, when you have that perfect peace, when you've acquired that perfect peace, now you're eligible for a promotion. You can be promoted to what Jesus calls a peacemaker. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. If churches took out one ads in the local paper, all the smart ones would have this ad right here. It'd say, wanted peacemakers. Because one peacemaker is worth a half a dozen blowhard preachers or singers with their hair greased back. You can't beat a peacemaker. Peacemakers are soul winners. Peacemakers attract people like a dead steer draws flies. I'm not sure that was a good of an analogy, but that's the one I come up with. When I have a problem, I call a peacemaker. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I call a peacemaker. When I need prayer, I call a peacemaker. If the devil gets loose in your house, you need a peacemaker. The devil hates peacemakers. They're a threat to his agenda. He's all about chaos and agitation and getting wound up. And now one last thing here. Last one, I promise you. Turn to Mark, book of Mark, chapter 5. I want you to see this. Once you've got that perfect peace, see, you didn't get it just for you. You got it to share. Now you're a peacemaker. So, once you're a peacemaker, see, I can't see if Missy and Dean here, if they're going at it again. Notice how I slipped again in there. That's a little dig at them. If they're calling the deputies down to their house to break them up again, and the deputies call me and they say, Mark, we don't know what to do with Dean and Missy. We're just going to have to lock them up. It's just gotten crazy down there. I can take my Bible and I can go down there and I can play peacemaker. But I, myself, cannot provide them that peace. I have to point them to the Peacekeeper. And we find the Peacekeeper in Mark chapter 5. Go down to verse 25. We'll start there. I want to tell you about a woman here. This little gal, she's got problems. It says, now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and she'd suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. These doctors couldn't help her. Sounds like they made it worse. She spent all of her money. She's bankrupted herself on this problem, and still she ain't got no peace. So verse 20 there says, when she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes? But his disciples said to him, you see this crowd, you see this multitude thronging around you, and you say, who touched me? But he looks around and to see her, and he sees her that done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, listen to what he says, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in what? Peace. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. The only place you find that peace is with the Peacekeeper. Now, when you find yourself hanging on by a thread, you ever been there? I mean, it's piled up and you're just hanging on by a thread. I'm the only one that's ever been there. Come on, Beth, I know you've been there. You're just hanging on by a thread. You want to make sure that thread is coming from the hem of his garment. Because if it's coming from anywhere else, it's just going to unravel. But if you can just get a hold of him, if you can just reach out and touch him in faith, he says, there you are. I've got this peace for you. Your faith has made you well. I've been waiting on you. We're just grabbing for everything, right? We're grabbing for everything but the right thing. And why is it when life, any of you ever, maybe I'm the only one ignorant enough to ever do this. On the 4th of July when you was a kid, did you ever try to light fireworks and throw them? You kids, this is what happens when you do that. Pretty soon one just blows up in your hand. Sometimes you're going through life and you're just having fun, like you're throwing cherry bombs with your hand, and life just blows up in your face. Happens every day to somebody. Okay. Why is it when that happens, we take our Christianity and we go out and put it in the trunk of our car and slam the lid down and say, Jesus, I got to handle this one. I'll be back. I'll be back to get you, but it's going to take the old man. It's going to take some flesh to straighten this out. Then we roll up our sleeves and we get floored one more time. We just get knocked plumb out by life. And we wind up, here's how you wind up. You do that enough times, you wind up old and bitter. I don't know no nice way to wrap it up. You just wind up old and bitter. You're bitter at people. You just want to hide out. You don't want nothing to do with anybody. You're just bitter. Life's really been a disappointment. Sure, I can all those little things the devil tries to dangle in my face. I can run off after this distraction or that distraction for a little bit, but then I end up right back where I was at, just bitter. You put Jesus away when you needed him the most. He's the only one that'll carry you through that. So many times we put our Christianity in the trunk of the car and we run and we get ourselves into this mess and we're like, well, here I am again. I need you to come bail me out. I need you to pull me out of this pit. Am I talking to anybody? Only if I hang on to him. If I can just hang on to him. I don't care if I go through the gates of glory, I go through the gates of heaven, I just want to get drug in there. I'm just hanging on to the hem of his garment. He's walking like this. He says, well, Peter, here I am. I had to drag Mark through the gates. He was afraid to turn loose. You bet I'm afraid to turn loose. This world can overtake you and drag you down. Or you can just become one with it. You can just give it up and you say, well, here I am, world. What do you got for me? You know where you wind up there. There's a bottomless pit waiting on that. You just got to grab a hold of Jesus and hang on. Let's have an invitation, Dean.